Hey everyone, we'll wait just a couple minutes. Looks like we've got about half of our group here, so I'll give them just a couple minutes to see if we have anybody else join in. Okay, well, we'll see. It's a busy week, so everybody might not be able to make it. So just so I don't have to keep you guys longer than you want to be kept. I'm going to kind of go over a few things with you, and then see if you have questions for me that I either will have answers to, or I can try to find answers and get back to you on. So we're getting close. We got just a little bit of time. What do we have? About a month, almost exactly, before we'll be hitting the road. I guess I should just preface this. I haven't talked to you all in person before I had to send out my super sad email about how me attempting to be ambitious during a pandemic, unfortunately, might not have been the best way to go. Although I guess a little bit of ambition was good, or else we wouldn't be taking the trip at all. But I'm sorry that the cruise part wasn't going to work out. The fact that we just could have a negative test and then we'd have to split up as a group was going to be too much for the university to stomach. So just to give you a sense of where we're at, what it got hairy. I had to deal with it, the cruise company for a while. What they basically decided to allow us to do is they gave me back half of your money in cash, and then they give half of it back to me in a credit. And so I'm going to figure out a way to make use of the credit. My wife's been wanting to go on a cruise with some of her friends for a while, so apparently now they're going to get to do that. And so we'll just kind of use that for that. Long story short, the only thing that really matters for your perspective is you'll be getting all your money back. For those of you who actually, just 1 second, do you have that list somewhere? For those of you who Venmo'd my wife money, most of you today, this afternoon, should have got that money back into your account. Though we did run into a little bit of a hiccup, and the hiccup was the fact that apparently Venmo has a cap on how much money can actually go in 1 week. So we hit that wall. And because of that, I can't send any more money. I think the only person who didn't get any money back was Aaron. So sorry, Aaron, you're gonna have to wait till next week to get your refund, but I promise it's coming. And then I think at least one person, Anela, sent it in 2 installments, and one of the installments I was able to refund, but the other one we'll still need to get to. But I believe everybody else should have got back what they sent me, with the exception of those who paid me via check or money order. If you're in that category, which there's just a couple of you, I think probably the easiest way to do it is to just have me mail you physically a check back. So I should just say at the end of the meeting tonight, I'm going to send out an email that has a lot of the kind of granular details that we're going to go over that you'll need to reference. And for those of you who need a check mailed back to you, send me your home address as a response to that email, just so I make sure I have it, and I'll get you a check mailed out in the next couple days. So anyhow, you either have got your money back at this point, or you should be getting it back soon through the mail or through Venmo next week, as soon as I can send more money. So there are a couple, another thing that's kind of unique is it looks like we signed up for, if you guys remember, in the fall, we created we didn't do what was called a private tour, which means we kind of guarantee we're the only people on the bus. Rather, we did a kind of generic tour, and then the travel company, if they can, they sort of piece different school groups together to fill out the bus. Probably because not that many schools are traveling during a pandemic, but at least as of 2 weeks ago, there wasn't any other group on the bus with us. So we'll have plenty of legroom and lay down napping space on the bus, because it'll seat like 50 people probably. And we have 11. So plenty of space, probably, unless things change. The other thing, though, more importantly than a little extra, lay down room, is the fact that if nobody else joins our tour, there might be some ways we're able to tweak our itinerary just slightly to make it just a little more art focused. We're on like a generic tour, and the generic tour hits some of like the artistic highlights in the cities we're going to. The big ones, like in Rome, we go to the Vatican and the Colosseum and the Forum, and in Athens, we go to the Parthenon. But in Florence, especially, and even in an extra day in Rome, there's a couple of museums that I'd really like to have our whole group go to. There's 2 ways to do that. One is just have free time and say, hey, everybody go to this museum. The downside of that is then you're just a regular tourist, and when you get to the museum, you frequently have to wait in long lines to get tickets, or sometimes you have to reserve your tickets in advance, which is a little bit of a pain. If nobody joins our group, I might see if EF Tours would be willing to roll to some of those tickets into our overall cost for the trip. The upside of this is if we do that, then EF Tours buys these tickets in advance, and we basically get to jump to the front of the line when we get there, which means you're not wasting any time during the 1 or 2 days you have in the city waiting in line to get in a museum. Basically, in Florence, I'd really like you all, and I think you all would probably like to see Michelangelo's David. It's in a museum called the Academy. And then there's the big art museum in town is called the Uffizi Gallery. So it has like Botticelli's Birth of Venus and a number of iconic works of art that are in Florence from the Renaissance especially. So I'm going to be working with them. If it looks like they basically said, give us a few more weeks to see if there's any other group we can fold in with you. But if not, then we can see if we can do this. What that might mean, if we do add a couple like museum admissions into the trip, it might mean that the cost rises by, $50 or something like that to cover them. Now, a lot of you already have a credit on your account because our cost actually went down when we decided to just fly home out of Athens instead of out of Florence. So, so for many of you, it won't make a difference. For some of you, if you do see like a little extra charge, that's probably what it's from. But if that becomes the case, I will certainly send you an email and kind of alert you to the fact that, like I said, they wouldn't let me do that quite yet, but I think we probably at this point will be the only people on the bus, and hopefully we can tweak things just slightly to make it a little bit better. Okay. I just received this last week, our flight info. And I'll include all this information in the email I sent you, so don't stress too much. But the things I do want to highlight are kind of when we leave and when we get home, because we don't have any like official transportation to the airport. I tried to do that one year and then realized that everybody just likes to, like, frequently parents like to drop their kids off and pick them up anyways. So we just decided, okay, we'll just let everybody get to Dulles Airport on their own. Now, if you are in a bind, if you can't get a ride to the airport or get a ride from the airport, let me know. We have a minivan and my wife is going to come pick me up and drop me off. And particularly if you're somewhere in the Shepherdstown area or kind of along the way, we might be able to pick you up and carpool down. So our flight is going to leave on the 18th. We leave relatively late at night, a little bit later than normal. We leave at 9:10 p.m. But I would like to ask all of you to be there 3 hours in advance. Technically, they recommend about 2.5 hours, but because we're traveling as a group, just to be safe. So we're going to kind of shoot for about 6 o'clock p.m. on the 18th as our meeting time. I will be waiting by the check-in counters at Dulles Airport. Our flight, I'm not quite sure. So airlines do weird things. One of the weird things about ours is technically we are on a Delta Airlines flight, but it said is operated by Air France. So I'm not quite sure if that means we're going to check in at the Delta Airlines counter or the Air France counter. I'll try to get there a little bit before you guys and figure that out. So we will either be meeting in front of the Delta counter or the Air France counter, but they're not that far apart. So, you know, we should be able to find each other. We'll meet. Basically, the only thing you should need to check in is your passport. And so just make sure you have that on you, and then you don't need like a physical ticket or anything. They'll print it off and give it to you there. The way our flight works is we fly all night long. We get into Paris early the next morning at 10:45. We have a 2-hour layover, and then we fly to Florence and we get there by 2:30. The downside of that is usually when I fly internationally, we leave a little bit earlier and get there a little bit earlier in the morning, maybe like 7 or 8 o'clock. This doesn't get us there till kind of the afternoon. So by the time we get on the ground in Florence, we probably won't have much time to do anything, although I'm going to see if there's any way they'll take us over to the academy to at least view David, because that's kind of a quick visit. So we might be able to get something in that day. Either way, you're going to be really tired though. So just kind of be prepared for that. Try to do your best to sleep on the flight on the way over, especially the first long leg. Sometimes it helps to bring a little medication to help you sleep. Some people sleep easier on planes. Bring a pillow, do whatever you can, because the more sleep you can get on the plane, the more sane you will be once we get on the ground. Then we do have a little intermediary flight where you're flying from Rome to Athens. That one doesn't really matter, but for timing, because we'll just be with the group, but we take off on the 24th at 3:40 at Rome and land at 6:40 in Athens. More importantly, though, is the way home. On the 27th of May, we fly out of Athens at 2:45 on Delta Airlines. We go and have a layover in JFK for about 3 hours, which gets us home pretty late into DC. We go to Dulles and we're supposed to arrive at 11:23. The good news is we have a pretty solid 3-hour layover in JFK. So hopefully that means, we don't miss our second leg of our flight. But the downside is we do get home pretty late. So you'll have to have somebody pick you up from the airport, between 11:30 and probably 11:45. So like I said, if that is a huge problem for anybody, let me know. And either I can help provide a ride possibly, or we can even check with the group and see if there's other people who are maybe live near you and can catch rides together.
And you said we'd be arriving at JFK, but we'd be leaving from Dulles?
So we have a layover in JFK. So we fly from Athens to JFK and then JFK to Dulles. So we get into Dulles at 11:23, which is what really matters.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. So anyhow, the two important things to be aware of: we try to get to the airport on the 18th at about 6 o'clock p.m. and arrange for somehow transportation to get to the airport, and then try to arrange for transportation home from the airport on the 27th around 11:30, 11:45, as long as everything goes according to plan. I will include the flight numbers and all those times and everything in the email I send out. So you'll have all of that data. They haven't got to me yet information on hotels, which is kind of surprising to me, but hopefully that'll be coming in the next week or so. As soon as I know anything about hotels, I'll send it out to you as well. It's not the end of the world, but sometimes it gives us, it's most important to think about like kind of where a hotel maybe is located in the city and the best means of, say, public transportation based on that location. But once I know that, I'll send out an email. Okay, one thing I'm guessing, actually, I'm going to ask you guys. I know I got an email just a few days ago from EF on the Safe Traveler about the Safe Traveler agreement. I don't know if anybody else got that email. I know you're all muted, but
Yeah, I got the email.
Okay, good. So I was assuming it went out to you as well. But that is something that we have to, everybody's going to have to do before we leave. You have to go into your account on EF Tours, and you have to go through this process of filling out this Safe Traveler agreement and kind of like digitally sign it, I guess. And then the other thing is you have to have a COVID test prior to going to the airport. Luckily for us, they have loosened the restrictions a little bit. And apparently they will allow you to do a rapid at-home test within 24 hours of the departure. Basically, there's three options. You can do a PCR test administered within 72 hours. You can do a telehealth administered test within 72 hours, or you can do the 24-hour at-home test. Apparently, EF will be emailing us within about a week before we leave to give us specific details, because of course things could change depending on what happens with, you know, the virus. But for right now, it looks like we can do our tests at home, at least when we're leaving, which is nice. Though if if a different country we're flying to has a different regulation, then we'll have to deal with that. But just plan on watching your email, looking at the Safe Traveler agreement, going through that, and then make sure you have some plan to be tested on one of those three ways prior to departure. Let's see. I think I saw Aaron had a question in chat. Has anyone had to sleep in a double bed with another person, like ever in my life, or just like on the trip? I think because we're on the trip basically with just our group, Aaron, I think because you had to pay like an upgrade fee because you're an adult, a slightly older than average college age student person. You're in a double room, but you're the only adult female in that boat. So I think you'll just get your own room. So I don't think you need to worry about sleeping in the double bed. For the rest of you, you are in rooms. It'll vary. Sometimes you will be 3 people in a room, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. The EF tries to find hotels in Europe that will have, like, if it's a room having like 4 single beds rather than like 2 double beds. And most of the time, the hotels they put us in, that's been my experience. So I think they go to an extreme and say there's a chance you could be in a room with 4 people and 2 double beds, which is a little bit tight. But that's actually not been the case most of the time in most of the hotels we've been in. So hopefully that will be accurate. Worst case scenario, you might have a couple nights where you've got a double bed with another person. But of course you will be in, well, this doesn't even matter because I'm the only male on the trip. You'll be, of course, grouped by gender, so you don't have to worry about that factor. Basically, just so you know, the way rooming works is when we're going to a hotel, they will give me a list and say, hey, we have like 2 rooms that have 3 people and 1 that has 2. And then I just have to I try to look at your roommate requests and sort of put you with people you want to be with, but it'll shift from hotel to hotel. So it changes. The hotels aren't quite as standardized in Europe as they are in America. So the rooms are a bit more haphazard, and the numbers of people you can fit in the room varies a bit more widely. Does that answer that question, Aaron? If not, let me know either via the chat or through your voice. Okay, something important that, again, if this applies to you, I want you to reply to me in an email after I send this one out later tonight. If you have any food allergies or preferences, like you're a vegetarian, I need you to let me know that ASAP. We're eating about half of our dinners together. And if you have either dietary restrictions or preferences, we can take those into account, but we have to let them know in advance. We once we show up at the restaurant, it's hard to change it on the ground. I will say, and this is not to like make anybody feel bad, if you happen to be a vegetarian, I'm proud of you for making a noble choice. This has been my experience when we eat as a group on these trips. The food's usually okay, but it's not great. But usually the vegetarian meals are like definitely below average. It feels like a lot of these restaurants like aren't prepared for that. And so, they come up with a not very impressive plate of vegetables or cheese or something. So not to dissuade you from being a vegetarian, just to kind of prepare you, I guess. I'm not sure if I've had people with other restrictions on the trip before, so I don't know how they're doing, if that impacts what you get. I mean, it will impact what you eat, but whether it makes it better or worse, I guess it could go either way. But if you do have those dietary restrictions, please let me know, and then I will pass along all that information to EF Tours. And the same thing with regard to if you take any medications. I'm hesitant to dive too deeply into your personal life. That being said, if you have medications that you need to carry with you and are very important for your either physical or mental health, it's good that I know what those medications are, just in case we need to procure any while abroad or if there's any kind of problem. So if you have medications you regularly take that you'll obviously be bringing along with you, but just in case we have an issue I'm aware of, please do let me know. And I guess that would not only medications, but if you have any medical conditions. So if you're a diabetic or something like that, that again might, if there are problems on the ground, be aware of. My first time I ever took a trip, I had a student the first day we got on the ground in Rome, collapse and have a seizure on the street. Now, she hadn't had a seizure for like 9 years. It had been a while, but she had them before. And she didn't tell me. And so we were a bit caught off guard with that. So if there's something like that in your past, it might be good to just kind of alert me just in case. If it's been a long time, hopefully it won't affect you. But just make me aware if there are things like that. It's probably smart to pack a small bottle of basic medications like Advil or Pepto-Bismol tablets, things like that, if you have a little stomach ache or a headache. The other thing that is probably wise to bring medically is some kind of protection against blisters. We do a lot of walking on the trip, and it's pretty common that people develop blisters during the trip. So, going into CVS or Walgreens and getting some of those little kind of pads or blister guards, just throwing them in your bag, moleskin, those kinds of things can be lifesavers when we are walking. Okay, I technically have a phone currently, yay. Now, I'm going to warn you, if you try to text me in the next 3 weeks, I probably won't respond because I don't really use it in my regular life. It sits in a drawer. That being said, I will have it activated and for use while we're on the trip. You guys are bigger experts than I am, and we can kind of set this up as we go. But if there's either an app, a texting app or something like that, that's the most efficient way to be able to communicate while we're on the ground as a group, we can figure out what that is. I will include my phone number in the email I send out to you. I will say it now out loud just in case you want to write it down, but I'll have it in the email. It's 304-919-0968. So it'll matter more once we're on the ground there, and if you need to get a hold of me, but that will be my phone number. Okay, so the next couple things have to do with, it's kind of two-pronged, but they're related. It's health insurance and making sure all of you are affiliated with Shepherd University in order to travel on our trip. And really the reason you need to be affiliated with Shepherd University is so you can get health insurance through Shepherd University. So let me talk about health insurance kind of generally first, and then talk about being affiliated with university. So Shepherd has a deal for an international health coverage plan that's pretty thorough and covers all the things you might need if you have any health issues while abroad. It's going to cost, for those of you who are students, it will be $26.33. So it's not a lot of money, which is nice. For those of you who are non-students, it's only a little bit more. It's $44.10. And again, I will include all this in the email. For those of you who are Shepherd students, it's pretty easy. You don't really have to do anything. The charge will just appear in your Shepherd student account. So the same way your tuition or whatever appears, and you get that paid when you pay off your various bills at Shepherd. For those of you who are not Shepherd students, it's a little more complicated because you don't have a built-in account. So let me talk through that in relation to the other side of the coin, which is becoming affiliated with Shepherd University. So there's a bunch of categories here that I'll break this all down in the emails, but I want to walk you through them. There's if you're a student or a non-student. There's also if you took my Art 304 class back in 2020 when we were originally planning on going on the month-long trip. That puts you in a slightly different category too. So let me try to explain this. If you are a Shepherd student and you took my Art 304 class in the fall of 2020, you don't need to do anything really. They basically say, okay, you signed up technically to go on a trip with a Shepherd faculty member. You have to sign up for a course of some sort. And so for those of you who took that class, you're basically just like the box is checked, like you took that class. And I made a deal with the administration. I said, hey, I know the class happened a long time ago, but they did take it. The only exception to that is Aaron, because currently a Shepherd student, it makes it a little bit different. So those of you who are currently Shepherd students and you took, unless you still are a Shepherd student, I'm unaware of that, Aaron, you can let me know individually. But if you're not a Shepherd student, or if you are a Shepherd student, you took that class, you're good to go, no problems. Okay, so Aaron, you do have an active account. So actually it might be a little easier in that way. So category number 2 is you are currently a Shepherd student and you did not take my Art 304 class. So what they want you to do then is you have to sign up. What I've done is I've set up what's called a continuing education class. It's basically just a class that anybody can take. You don't have to be a Shepherd student, like community members sign up for them. And it's essentially the cheapest way to do this because they charge for those continuing education classes, the tuition is substantially lower than regular classes. So to take a 1-credit continuing education class costs $59. So that's the cheapest way we can do this. So if you didn't take my Art 304 class, whether you are a Shepherd student or not, you're going to have to sign up for this 1-credit continuing education class and pay $59 stupid dollars. I'm sorry you have to do that. It's annoying. I wish you didn't, but Shepherd makes you do that. The only alternative to that would be is if you're currently a Shepherd student and you would like to get like more credit for going on the trip, take like a 3-credit class. I could set up a summer course that after the trip, I'll have you do some reading and some writing and things basically to get like 3 credits. I don't know if anybody's in that boat, but if you are, let me know and I can work with you. But for most everybody else who hasn't taken my Art 304 class, you will have to fill out this form that I will be emailing out to you. I haven't got it yet, so it probably won't go out in the email tonight. Hopefully in the next couple of days. It's been a week since it was supposed to be processed. Basically, you will have this form. You will have to submit it and submit your $59 payment along with it. For those of you who are not Shepherd students at all, we have a few of those. Caitlin's mom and Anela, who's graduated. You basically just need to do the same thing. You'll need to fill out this continuing education form and submit it. The only difference is you will also need to submit your payment for your health insurance along with that. So you'll have the $59 fee for your health insurance, and you'll have the 41, what did I say it was, $44.10. So I'd have to add those together. Basically, that's about $100. It'll be a little around there that you'll have to submit. I'm gonna outline for you the easiest way to do this. Unfortunately, Shepherd doesn't have like a nice online system where you can go and just like pay it with a credit card. It's a little annoying. You'll have to send it in like physically or go drop it off physically. You can, I did check, if you're doing both those things, if you have to pay for the class and the health insurance and you're not a Shepherd student, they did said you can just write one check, and I'll tell you where to submit it. And then she kind of knows what's going on and she can split the funds into the two places. So it's a little bit complicated. This is one reason I'm sending out this email, but this way, again, it's pretty easy. If you've taken my Art 304 class, you don't need to do anything. You'll see, and you're a current Shepherd student, you'll just see a charge on your account. If you're a current Shepherd student, but you haven't taken Art 304, you will need to fill out the continuing education form and pay $59, but you don't need to do anything in addition to the health insurance because it'll just show on your account. If you are a non-Shepherd student, you have to both fill out the CE form and submit money for health insurance together to get that covered. All right, I'm sorry that's so annoying. I wish it wasn't. But the good thing is we used to just have students sign up for health insurance through EF Tours, and it was like $100 for the trip. And now with Shepherd, it's like 25 to 40. So it's a little annoying, but it does save you a pretty good chunk of money. So that's good. Okay, I should just pause for a moment. I know that was really weird, and see if I have any questions from anybody about that.
I think I asked you before, but I'm in a weird place because I'm graduating this May. So by the time we go on the trip, I'll technically no longer be a Shepherd student, but I will have been one this year. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right. So
what place am I in that case?
you are in the category of still being a Shepherd student, because we're taking care of all this stuff basically while you are a student. And they'll be charging your student account like while you're a student. They just count you as a student. So we're in that category of still being a student, even though technically you won't be when we travel.
Okay, so will I have to fill out that form, or I honestly can't remember if I took 304 with you.
I don't think you took 304 with me. So like I said, that was the fall of 2022. So that was the people who were going
okay.
on the month-long trip that was
Okay.
canceled because of COVID. And I don't think you were on that, right?
No.
So you will have to do the CE form and do the $59 for that one credit class, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay. So the next thing on my list is luggage. Now that we found out what airlines we're using, or I was able to look and find out the rules on luggage. So a few things. With international travel still on Delta, which we're flying on, you get one piece of checked baggage for free. It can be up to 50 pounds in weight, and it can be no more than 62 inches when you add the length, width, and height, or else you will have to pay an extra fee. And that fee is pretty steep. It gets to be like $100, I think, if you're over that. So one thing you'll want to do is make sure that your bag is under 50 pounds. To be frank, now that we're not going for 20 days, we're going for 10 days instead, it's a lot easier to keep that under 50 pounds, hopefully. So it shouldn't be quite as big a deal. You might, with the trip being a little bit shorter, you might even be able to go into a smaller suitcase if you want, but it's not that big of a deal if you want to bring a big suitcase, because to be honest, because we're with EF Tours the whole way, we're not like on the cruise on our own. Pretty much a bus will pick us up and drop us off at every hotel, and the luggage will just be out of the bus. So you just grab your bag and take it inside. So if the bag is large, it's not a problem as long as it's not over 50 pounds or over the 62 inches. So just make sure you weigh it, and it's not super heavy. You'll probably collect some souvenirs on the way too, so being a little under 50 is good. You also can bring on the plane another bag and a personal item. So the personal item is supposed to be a purse or a small backpack, and the other bag can be a little bit larger. My advice would be to just try to bring something relatively small on the plane, maybe has a pillow, stuff you need just for the flight. And then in your checked bag, if you put like an empty collapsible like duffel bag or something like that, then if you get some souvenirs, you can put them in that bag, and on the flight home, that can be your other item that you carry on the plane, and you don't have to pay any extra money. So that's just kind of one option that I would sort of suggest. But on the flights, you get a personal item and a bag, and you get a checked bag for free as long as it's not over 50 pounds. So that's good. One thing I'm going to suggest, and actually, I don't know, I can't remember if in our last meeting, I feel like we didn't bring this up, even though we brought the suitcase. I'm going to heavily suggest you get a suitcase that has the 4 wheels on the bottom that rotate. Most suitcases now have them, to be honest, but it is very helpful. They're just much more convenient, especially when we're loading a bus kind of collectively. They make it a lot easier. I'm not like saying you have to do that. It's just a strong suggestion. With regard to spending money, just as a reminder now, so the math is a little bit different because our trip's a little bit shorter. We've got about half of our dinners included and all of our breakfasts. So you're looking at lunches and about half of your dinners and souvenirs. And then the only other thing is we have a couple days we have some free time. On your free time, you might want to buy like a ticket on a subway or a bus. You might want to go into a museum that we don't have on the regular itinerary. So my guess would be between lunch and averaging some dinners and maybe a little bit of transportation, you're probably looking at maybe budgeting maybe $30 to $50 per day. You certainly could keep it under that on a lot of days, but trying to be a little generous, which means over the course of about 10 days, you're looking somewhere in the $250 to $500 range for the trip. So just be aware of that. In our previous meeting, we talked a good bit about using money, and there's 2 things that are the best options. One is most everywhere will accept the same credit cards you use here. So you can use credit cards for a lot of your purchases. And then the other easiest way to get cash out is just to go to an ATM over there. And you can put the same card in you use here, and it will crank out euros instead of dollars, and you get that. The only things to be aware of, one is you do want to check with your banks, make sure that your credit card, you can ask if it works in Europe. They almost all do, but just double check. Check on if there are weird exorbitant fees to use your credit card overseas, because that might change your strategy. If it's, a $5 fee every time you swipe it, that's not good. Or if they charge like a percentage, they have different rules, but check into that. And then check with your bank. And I should alert your credit card company that you are traveling overseas. Every once in a while, when they see a charge, in Florence and you don't live there, they can freeze your card, which then can be problematic and unfun because you have to be on the phone trying to figure all that stuff out when you want to be enjoying your vacation. And the same thing with your bank. Let them know you're traveling and just check and say, hey, can I use my ATM card in Europe? And are there any fees, and what are those fees? Just so you're kind of aware of them. It might be the kind of thing, if they're going to charge me $10 to take out money, then, I'm going to try to go to one ATM the first day and take out, as much as I need for the whole trip, rather than have to be making multiple ATM visits. But it's pretty easy between credit cards and the ATMs that spit out euros to you. So it's not that big of a deal usually. Okay. I think that covered most of the stuff that I came up with that I wanted to talk to you guys about, but I wanted to see if there are things that you have questions about that, like I said, I can either answer directly, or I can do my best to find out the answer if I don't know. Anybody have questions?
I've asked a lot already, but I'll say one more.
Ask
You
away.
said at our last meeting that we might need to get, or maybe it might have been a couple meetings ago, but that we might need to get another COVID booster, depending on like that 6 months of like immunity thing. But because our trip is shorter, is that still a factor, or?
So that's a really good question that actually came to my mind today, and I sent an email to EF Tours, but I haven't heard back from them. So as soon as I find out, I'll let you know. The tricky thing is, I believe, and maybe somebody correct me if they know more than I do, I don't think they've approved a 4th booster for people under like 60 years old. And so I don't think technically I am approved to get a 4th shot, even though it will have been 6 months since my third shot I got in like December. So I need to see this. This is all based on what the countries we're traveling to require. It's not an EF thing. So it depends on what Italy requires and what Greece requires. So that's what I need to find out, is if they are requiring that the booster be within 6 months. And then if they do require that, I need to ask if, so how is that supposed to work if we're not approved to get a fourth booster shot yet? Now, of course, we're still a month out and that could change. I think there's a pretty good chance that in the next month, the booster will be a fourth shot will be approved for people under 60. But as of right now, I don't think it has been, or at least it wasn't last week when I last heard. So as soon as I find out anything about that, I'll let you know. I will say, if you got your last boosted shot or your first 2 doses of the vaccine within 6 months of our trip ending, on May 27th, then you're fine. Then you don't need to worry about it. The only thing this really applies to is if your last shot or vaccination occurred more than 6 months before the end of our trip, then you might need to get boosted. Now, if you've never been boosted, it's pretty easy to say, okay, I'll just get my booster shot, my third shot. And that isn't a problem at all. And so that would certainly be advised if it's been more than 6 months. The only tricky category, like I said, is people like me who got their third shot in like December, and it's going to be kind of right on the edge of 6 months. So once I get that answer back, I will send an email to everybody passing that information along. My guess is most of you were either vaccinated or boosted within 6 months, or you haven't been boosted and you can get a third shot at sometime in the next month, and then you can take care of that.
Thank you.
No problem. Other questions? Oh, Anela, let me see what your question is. I don't know. If you're not currently admitted in a master's program, I don't think that we can technically like have you sign up for a class and then retroactively count the hours. There is a possibility, if you were thinking about starting a master's program in the fall or something like that, I could set up a course for you to do if you wanted to get some credit that would like kind of build off of what we do on the trip, where I'd probably ask you to like do some research on some things you saw on the trip that you were interested in. That being said, that's not going to solve the like need to sign up for a class this summer to get you in the system. So you still would probably need to do the 1 credit $59 continuing education course. But feel free to talk to me. We can talk while we're on the trip, even, to be perfectly honest about it. If you think you're going to be doing a master's degree in the fall, we might be able to set up a little kind of independent study course for you to get some graduate credit based on what we've done on the trip. Other questions? Since all I see are your names and not your faces, I can't tell what your reactions are. But I'm going to interpret silence as no more questions. Okay. So I will, I've got this email that I'm going to clean up a few things on that I will send out to you guys later tonight with most of the like granular details about how much money, you owe, depending on if you're a student or a non-student, where you have to send a check, our flight information, all that kind of stuff, the kind of reminders on medication and food allergies, my phone information. And if you have any of that stuff, you need to get back to me, like dietary preferences, health issues you just want to kind of get documented and be aware of, feel free to reply to that email. And if you have other questions that haven't been answered, reply as well, and I'll do my best to address those as well. Okay, well, hopefully everything goes smoothly and everybody tests negative with our test prior to flying. I'm not exactly sure what happens if, right before we test and we fly, we test positive, but that one, to be honest, is kind of on EF Tour's shoulders to figure that part out. So the travel company, has a procedure for doing that if it need be. I would kind of advise that in the maybe 4, 5, 6 days leading up to our trip, I don't know that you need to fully quarantine, but you might want to at least be a little bit more precautious. Not precautious, cautious. Might want to take precautions or be more cautious, one or the other. Just so that you don't want to catch COVID like the day or two before and have that throw the whole trip for a loop. So that would be my advice. Maybe if you haven't been wearing a mask, maybe you put a mask on. You try to avoid like big indoor parties and things like that, maybe in the week leading up to it. If you can. That's probably what I'm going to do. So okay. If there's no other questions, I'll look forward to seeing you all in person. If I don't see you at the end of the semester here, I might see some of you at graduation, might see some of you in my finals for a few of you. For most of you, hopefully I will see you at 6 o'clock at Dulles Airport in front of either the Delta Airlines or Air France check-in counter. I'm not sure which, but one of the two. And we'll check into our flights. We'll have a few hours, kind of chill in the airport, get some food if you're hungry to kind of eat. So then when you get on the plane, you can try to rest. And hopefully we'll have a great trip. All right. Okay. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Good to see you, sort of. And I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Erin.
Bye. Oh, sorry.